So I'm going to be 100% honest here. The Fever can't afford to run it back. They can't. Um, they simply put do not have the funds to. Why does every time I go into roster does it send up a freaking AI question? But they don't have the funds to put their team together. Again. So I'm going to guess what these players are going to cost. I'm going to tell you what it will cost for the Fever to run it back. Before we get on to it, if you guys are new to the channel, subscribe. We are trying to hit 57,750 subscribers by the end of the day. We are 46 off. So Kelsey Mitchell is not, I highly doubt Kelsey.
The spreadsheets hit the desk, and the room went cold. The Indiana Fever owners looked at the projected 2026 payroll and realized they were staring at a financial suicide note. There is no plan B, there is no hidden budget. The dream of keeping CaitlinClark's supporting cast together has gone up in flames, because the math simply refuses to work. This isn't just a roster change, it's a total rejection of the team's current identity. The front office is in a state of absolute panic, as the realization sinks in, they might have to dismantle a winning core before it even reaches its peak performance. This isn't just a minor setback. It's a full-scale organizational crisis that could change everything we thought we knew about this team's future.
57,750 subscribers by the end of the day. We are 46 off. So, Kelsey Mitchell is not... I highly doubt Kelsey Mitchell is going to play for 1 cent less than the Supermax. And I have a feeling she is going to be used... The core designation is going to be used on Kelsey Mitchell to guarantee she stays, and it will be a Supermax for Kelsey Mitchell because there's 1 more year of the core designation. So, with that, we are looking at $1.4 million for Kelsey Mitchell's contract. Odyssey Sims is not going to be coming back. Shout out Odyssey Sims, 27 points in Game 5 of the semi-final.
Let's be 100% honest here, because the situation is dire. The Indiana Fever absolutely cannot afford to run this roster back in 2026. People keep talking about chemistry and building a dynasty, but they are ignoring the cold, hard numbers that govern the league. You cannot pay players with hopes and dreams, and right now, the Fever are looking at a bank account that is bone dry. The ownership group has reached a breaking point. They have to decide between keeping their stars or keeping a functional bench. It's a zero-sum game, where every dollar spent on a veteran is a dollar taken away from the help CaitlinClark desperately needs. The internal memos are leaking, and the word coming out of the building is one of pure, unadulterated chaos.
Her skill set clashes with CaitlinClark, Leah Boston, and Kelsey Mitchell. If CaitlinClark is going to be traded, which we know she's not going to be, but obviously in this weird hypothetical, and someone's trying to sabotage the team, and they pull in Nico Harrison, Odyssey Sims would be great to have back. Odyssey Sims in the open market, based on how she did last year, is probably going to command. My guess is if I'm going to guess the median contract in the league is going to be about 450k. I would say she's going to command about 500-ish k, a little bit over the median. As will Ari McDonald. The problem with Ari McDonald is she has not been injured, or she has not been healthy at all in her career. I'm going to say they're not going to keep Odyssey Sims, but
the first major domino to fall is Kelsey Mitchell, and her price tag is going to send shockwaves through the front office. There is zero chance she plays for a single cent less than the Supermax. We are talking about a $1.4 million commitment just to keep her in a Fever jersey, to ensure she doesn't walk away for nothing. The team will almost certainly have to use the core designation on her. This move effectively traps her, but it also traps the team's salary cap in a vice grip. You're looking at a massive chunk of the budget disappearing before you even fill the second spot on the roster. It is a high-stakes gamble, one that many within the ownership circle are starting to push back against, fearing it will leave the team top-heavy and vulnerable.
Money to injured players. It's very, very weird. Bree Hall won't be coming back, so let's just ignore her. Shea Petty won't be coming back. Natasha Howard. So, Natasha Howard is going to want a max contract. She's not going to deserve a max contract. Some dumb team is going to give her a max contract. My expectation is that somewhere Natasha Howard is going to make 900k. And I don't think people want the Indiana Fever to run it back with Natasha Howard, but I have a feeling they're going to run it back. They're going to try to run it back with Howard. I have this really bad feeling they're going to try to run it back with Howard. Then you've got Aaliyah Boston. Aaliyah Boston's contract is going to be, she's going to make the max.
But the chaos doesn't stop with the superstar contracts, it's the mid-level talent that's causing the real headache. Take a look at Odyssey Sims. Despite her incredible performance and those 27-point outbursts, she is almost certainly gone. Why? Because her skill set clashes far too much with what CaitlinClark and Aaliyah Boston are trying to build in the open market. Based on her recent production, she's going to command well over the median contract price. We're talking about $500,000 for a player who might actually hinder the development of your franchise cornerstones. The owners are looking at that price tag and saying, absolutely not. They can't justify spending that kind of money on a player who doesn't fit the long-term vision.
Okay. CaitlinClark right now is going to be at $500K. So you're looking at then, so we've got one player here in Caitlin, 2 in Lexi, 3 in Sophie, 4 in Leah, 5 in Howard, 6 in Ari, 7 in Kelsey Mitchell. You now no longer have, there is now, for a 7 million salary cap, this is just, again, based on my expectations. You now have to fill out the entire team with vet minimum players or lower, and you can't afford your first round pick. To run it.
Then you have the heartbreaking reality of the bench rotation, and players like Ari McDonald. The problem here isn't talent, it's availability. Throughout her career, she has struggled to stay healthy, and the Fever simply cannot afford to gamble on a maybe anymore. Even though she's been a solid player when she's actually on the floor, the owners are hesitant to hand out a $500,000 contract to someone who might spend half the season in physical therapy. It's a brutal business, but the WNBA has this weird habit of giving big money to injured players. The Fever owners are finally putting their foot down. They are tired of paying for production that never actually makes it onto the hardwood during the playoffs.
To run it back means the Fever literally, and that is by the way, undershooting what these players are going to go for. They're going to go for more money than this. I'm undershooting this. The remaining 5 players with Indiana Fever have to be vet minimums, which means that it doesn't matter who's that 10th pick is, they can't afford to keep them. Players on this team that will be vet minimums. KK Timpson is going to cost about $300K. I think she's going to cost the minimum if you keep KK Timpson. We have seen that Sid Colson and Bree Turner are going to command more than the minimum. Why?
The situation with Natasha Howard is even more explosive. There are whispers that she's going to demand a max contract, even though her recent play doesn't necessarily justify that kind of investment. The fear within the Fever organization is that some team out there will actually give it to her, forcing Indiana to either overpay or lose a key piece of their interior defense. My expectation is that she's looking at a $900,000 payday. The owners are currently rejecting the idea of matching that kind of offer. They have a really bad feeling that trying to run it back with Howard will lead to a financial dead end. It's a standoff that could leave the locker room divided, and the fans wondering, who will protect the paint?
Greg Kelsey. They might have to let Sophie or Lexi walk. And running it back is not even an option. Like, they might literally have to keep their first round pick, they might have to get rid of Kelsey Mitchell. Like, that is the extent of the financial issues, that they might actually have to get rid of Kelsey Mitchell to keep their first overall pick. With a lot of this team building, it becomes awkward. And then you take into account that CaitlinClark's on a max next year. Like, you can't keep Kelsey Mitchell in 2027. And if you keep Kelsey Mitchell in 2027, someone did the maths and they're like...
Now, let's talk about the bedrock of the team, Aaliyah Boston. Her contract is coming up, and make no mistake, she is going to take the max. That is another $1.2 million wiped off the books instantly. When you add her total to Kelsey Mitchell's supermax, you are already sitting at nearly $3 million for just 2 players. We haven't even gotten to the role players yet, and the budget is already screaming for mercy. The owners are looking at these figures and realizing they are essentially building a house of cards. If one player gets hurt or underperforms, the entire structure collapses, because there is no money left to buy insurance in the form of quality depth. The pressure on Boston to perform at an MVP level is now astronomical.
The Phoenix Mercury did last year. Except you're not going to be able to sign a Sammy Wickham. Basically do what the Mercury did last year. And the Indiana Fever are I'm not going to say the worst scouting team, but are up there in the worst scouting teams. They scout like it's 2015 again. So them, the Aces, the Sky, they don't scout overseas. They don't look for these players like someone, like you even look at the Lynx, like they brought in Badian last year, who would have been fucking great for most teams. She just didn't want to come back after Eurobasket. There is a lot of talent overseas that you're going to have to look for, and the Fever aren't going to look for that. So what the Fever are going to end up doing is you're going to end up getting a bunch of...
The math only gets more terrifying when you look at fan favorites like Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull. You are not getting Sophie for less than the league average, it's just not happening. She knows her value. And while she might give a tiny hometown discount, someone is going to offer her a deal in the $700,000 range. The absolute lowest the Fever could hope to keep her for is $500,000. Then you have Lexi Hull, who is a restricted free agent. Because of that status, she might actually end up making even more money if another team decides to get aggressive. The owners are staring at two role players who could easily cost them another $1 million combined. The run-it-back dream is dying a slow, expensive death, and then there is the elephant in the room, CaitlinClark herself. Right now, she's slotted in at $500,000, but everyone knows that's just a placeholder for the massive payday coming her way. When you start adding up these 7 or 8 key players, you quickly realize you've hit the $7 million salary cap wall. There is literally no money left for anyone else. The owners are looking at a roster of 7 players and a completely empty bank account. This means the remaining 5 spots on the team have to be filled with veteran minimum contracts or rookies. You can't even afford to keep your own first-round draft pick because their slotted salary would push you over the edge into a financial catastrophe. This is where the true chaos begins to manifest in the front office. To even keep their first overall pick, the Fever might be forced to do the unthinkable, core designate and trade Kelsey Mitchell. Think about that for a second. The team might have to get rid of one of the best scorers in the league just to afford a rookie who hasn't played a single professional minute. The owners are reportedly torn on this, with some demanding they keep the proven star, and others insisting that the salary cap reality makes her expendable. It's a civil war behind the scenes that is threatening to derail the entire 2026 season before the 2025 campaign even concludes. The stability of the franchise is being rocked to its core. The 2027 outlook is even bleaker, creating a sense of urgency that borders on desperation. Once CaitlinClark moves on to her true max contract, the financial flexibility of this team vanishes entirely. Someone did the math, and even if Clark, Mitchell, and Boston all agreed to take regular max deals instead of supermaxes, the rest of the team would still have to be made up of league minimum players. You're essentially asking 3 stars to play 40 minutes a night because the bench will be filled with players who probably shouldn't even be in the league. It's the same trap the Phoenix Mercury fell into, and the Fever owners are terrified of repeating that history. They see the cliff coming, and they are screaming at the GM to turn the car around. Adding fuel to the fire is the fact that the Indiana Fever have developed a reputation for being one of the worst scouting teams in professional basketball. They are still scouting like it's 2015, focusing almost exclusively on domestic talent while the rest of the league goes global. The Aces and other teams are looking overseas, finding hidden gems who can play high-level minutes for low-level prices. Meanwhile, the Fever front office seems stuck in a time warp. They aren't looking for the next international breakout star, they're looking at the same recycled American role players who were out of the league 3 years ago. The owners are disgusted by this lack of innovation and are demanding a total overhaul of the scouting department. The failure to scout overseas is a massive strategic blunder, costing the team millions in potential value. Look at teams like the Lynx, who brought in talent that would have been a perfect fit for Indiana's system. But those players don't want to come to a team that feels stuck in the past. There is a wealth of talent in Europe and Australia that could fill veteran minimum spots with actual quality, but the Fever don't have the connections or the vision to bring them in. Instead, they are going to end up with a bunch of below-average players who were good 10 years ago but have nothing left in the tank. It's a recipe for a first-round exit and a waste of CaitlinClark's prime. Even the locker room leaders are becoming a financial burden the owners are no longer willing to carry. Players like Sid Carlson and Bree Turner provide incredible veteran presence, but they are going to command more than the league minimum. Why? Because young developing teams are desperate for leadership and will overpay to get it. The Fever can't afford to enter a bidding war for a player who doesn't contribute significant stats on the court. It's a cold calculation, but the ownership group is prioritizing on-court production per dollar over culture and leadership. This shift in philosophy is creating a massive rift between the players and the suits upstairs, leading to a toxic environment. The situation with Tammy Benlay is another example of the team's inability to keep known commodities. She showed flashes of brilliance, but in this tight financial landscape, she becomes a luxury the team simply can't afford. Unless a player is willing to play for the absolute bare minimum, they are being shown the door. The owners have instructed the general manager to stop looking at names and start looking at price tags. This has led to a situation where players feel like they are just numbers on a ledger rather than part of a family. The Fever ecosystem that everyone praised last year is being dismantled piece by piece in favor of a brutal bottom-line approach that has everyone on edge. We've seen this movie before, and it rarely has a happy ending. When a team tries to survive on a stars and scrubs model, the stars eventually burn out and the scrubs get exposed. The Phoenix Mercury tried this, and they became a laughingstock while their stars struggled to carry the weight of an entire franchise. The Fever owners are staring at that exact same fate. They are rejecting the current roster because they know it's a trap. They would rather blow it up now and try to build something sustainable than go into 2026 with a team that has no depth, no bench, and no hope of surviving a long playoff run. It's a radical, painful choice, but from their perspective, it's the only way forward. The tension reached a boiling point during a recent strategy meeting where the first-round pick was discussed. The scouts are excited about the talent available at the 10th pick, but the accountants are saying the team literally can't afford to sign them. Imagine being a franchise and having to pass on a top-tier prospect because you gave all your money to 3 veterans. It's an embarrassing situation for a professional sports team to be in. The owners are blaming the front office for poor salary cap management, while the front office is blaming the owners for not being willing to go into the luxury tax. No one is taking responsibility, and the players are caught in the middle of the crossfire. What makes this even more frustrating for the fans is that the talent is clearly there. This team showed they can compete with anyone when they are clicking. But the WNBA's financial structure isn't designed for teams to keep 3 or 4 max contract players together for long. The CaitlinClark effect has brought in more revenue, but it hasn't changed the salary cap rules yet. The owners are frustrated that they are making more money than ever but are still restricted by poverty-level cap space. They feel like the league is punishing them for their success, and they are taking that frustration out on roster construction. It's a mess that won't be cleaned up anytime soon. Rumors are now swirling that several key players have already been told to start looking for other opportunities. The chaos isn't just a headline, it's a daily reality for these athletes. Imagine going into a game knowing that no matter how well you play, your team has already decided they can't afford to keep you next year. That kind of uncertainty destroys team chemistry faster than anything else. The owner's rejection of the 2026 roster has created a lame duck atmosphere that is threatening to ruin the current season. Why dive for a loose ball or play through an injury when you know you're being replaced by a vet minimum player in a few months? The scouting department's refusal to evolve is perhaps the biggest hidden scandal in this whole situation. While teams like the Aces have sophisticated data analytics and international networks, the Fever are reportedly still relying on outdated methods. They aren't looking at second-tier international leagues, where high-value role players often hide. They are essentially shopping at a high-end boutique with a thrift store budget. The owners have finally noticed the discrepancy and are demanding to know why the team isn't finding cheaper, better alternatives overseas. The answer is usually a combination of laziness and a lack of vision, which is exactly why the team is in this financial hole. If the Fever do decide to trade Kelsey Mitchell, the backlash from the fan base will be nuclear. She is the heart and soul of the team, and trading her just to balance the books would be seen as a betrayal of the highest order. But the owners are looking at the 2027 max contract for CaitlinClark and realizing they have no choice. It's either trade Mitchell now and get some value back, or lose her for nothing later, and still be broke. It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario that has the front office paralyzed. The chaos is real, the fear is palpable, and the future of the Indiana Fever has never looked more uncertain. In the end, we are looking at a team that is a victim of its own potential.